doing it a little bit differently than what the other presentations. I'm presenting my directing book for the project that I have done in drama class. And so what a directing book is when you direct a piece, you need to have like all your ideas like out so that when you present it to an actor, you can keep the line of the play, because an actor is going to be more worried about like their character and their own character's personal development. And as a director, you have to keep like the whole of the play so that doesn't get lost in some of the other stuff. So I kind of just went and wrote out my process. So the first thing that I did is besides finding a script, once you have a script and once you have actors, then I went through the script and I divided it. And this consists of where I find the voice of each character. And the script I did was Iclaudia. So the first thing is like the script's a monologue, or the play is a monologue play. So there's no like different characters, and it's not, so I had to, and the way I chose to do it is there was going to be 2 Claudias. So I had to go through and I had to say what Claudia was going to say what, so that not every script you're going to have to do that, but in this one I did. So how I did that is I kind of just like highlighted it. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but I highlighted orange was Claudia 1 and red was Claudia 2, and yellow was when they talked together. So I went through, and part of that was I had to find like what kind of lines that Claudia 1 and Claudia 2 would say, and how they were different, and how but you wanted to make sure, I wanted to make sure that I didn't like still stereotype them. Like I didn't want Claudia 1 to be all this and Claudia 2 to be all the other. They needed to like have little bits of each so that they were whole characters. So I went through the whole script and did that. The next thing I did was I divided the script into units. So a unit is the same if you were doing like a full-length play. It would be like the same as like a scene. And so here's an example of a unit. Like a unit is this first area here to about like here. And in every unit there's like an arc. So just like if you're reading a story, and you like learn this in English, that the story keeps going, then it goes up, and then there's the arc at the top of the story, and that's like the pivotal point, and then it kind of like falls from there. In every unit there's an arc. You don't really want it necessarily to fall from there, because you need to like keep building up the story to the arc of the whole play. But you need to know where that arc is in each unit. And so how I made sure that I remembered where that arc is and where I needed to make sure we built to that point was I put like little red stars in every unit so that I knew where the arc was of that unit. The next thing that I did was notify like transition, whether that was, one of the biggest transitions in my piece was transitions from Claudia 1 and Claudia 2. So whenever the other Claudia spoke, there needed to be kind of like a transition between the two, because usually they said like different emotions in their lines. So like they would be talking about something really angry, and it would like pretty much the next line would be like a happy line. So it was like I had to figure out where those transitions were so that I was able to make them like look natural, and so that it was believable, and so that if I knew that, then I can teach my actors how to get there. I can help them get there. If I don't know that, then I can't really help them with that. And then the next thing I did is I came up with a set, and my set changed 3 times. So the first set I had like a completely blank set, like I wasn't going to have like any stage pieces really on it. And then I decided that I didn't like that, and so my first set choice was like this one here, and I found the center of the stage, and then I blocked, like I wanted a box here, stairs here, I wanted a garbage can here, and a bucket right here. And then as I started working with the actors and as we started actually playing on the stage, where I had some of the props like just didn't work out, so I changed it again. So then I had the stair, so I had like just changed where the only thing that really changed was where the mop went and where the bucket went and how far apart the stairs was, just so that it created more room for the actors to work in. And when you're creating like a set, you want to make sure there's 5 acting areas so the actor has lots of different places to go. My set had 9 acting areas, and so I numbered those out so that I knew that And when I wrote down blocking, I wrote which area it would be in. So I knew if I was doing like 8 ones in a row, like if they were always in acting area 1, then I needed to change that up so that it just is prettier to look at and more visually pleasing. The next thing I did is I identified my biggest challenges and possible like solutions. So I had 3. So the first one was like they're different characters. So the person, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's the same person, but it's being played, like the 2 different parts of the same person is being played by 2 different people. But I didn't want her to be like schizophrenic because that's not the point of the character. She's not crazy. It's just like a kind of like an artistic choice. So I needed to make sure the audience, and also her name is never really said. Like one character might say the name, but the other. So I needed to make it really clear to the audience, like through their movement, how they were the same person, but also how they were different. So how I did that is different choices when they talk together. That was the choice I made, like so that they talk together at points, so you got that. And also they would mirror each other's movements. So sometimes when Claudia 1 was talking, Claudia 2 would be doing the same movement as Claudia 1 who was talking. So that is one thing. That was my first challenge. The second challenge was transitions. So like I said, there's lots of transitions between the characters, and there's also a major transition because I took this script, like it's out of a whole script, and I like kind of changed the script to cut out parts to modify it. And there's a big script where it's a huge passage of time, and in the actual play, another character comes on and talks for like a couple minutes, and then it shows the passage of time. But we didn't have that luxury, so we had to show within a couple 30 seconds, a minute, that there was a couple months had passed and the character has grown up. So, and how I decided to do that is I was going to do like a tableau scene in between those 2 sections, and I also used symbolism and music. So the music changed. I put a piece of music in, and I did like kind of like a tableau dance sequence. And so I blocked that out also, like in my rough blocking here. And I was also they started out wearing white sweaters, and for the tableau, I changed them during the tableau, they changed into black sweaters to like symbolize the loss of innocence. So that was a way, because white is very symbolic and most people know that means it, and the loss of black. And then their actions in the second part also changed to be a bit more mature. And then the third one is to arc it at the right time, because there's lots of little arcs, and I was working with a longer piece. My piece was about half an hour, so I had to make sure that I didn't arc it too soon, because then when it got to the end, then it wasn't exciting, and it was kind of like past, people were like, oh, when is this going to be over? So I didn't want that, so I had to make sure that I planned out specifically where I was going to arc that. And so how I did that was I drew kind of like a plot diagram, like you do these in English. So I had lines where I'm like, this is when that starts, this is when this starts. So the first one is when it started, its rise was the first time the characters talked together, and they said like, who? And it was an introduction of another character and kind of like the antagonist of the story. And then I knew that it needed, by the time it got to the scene, the wedding, it needed to get to about here. And then the line where the pivotal line of the whole play, the kind of like reveal of the play, and it kind of went down from there, was the line, don't tell mom, so that was right there. And then the end of the play was the end of the poem, and it needed to have all finished by then. The next step in my process was I just went back and I re-identified circles in it. When I block and when I see my scenes, I see a lot of like circles, and I see them in like repetition. So like things in the beginning that reflect the end. And same in the units, different units, like similar units in the beginning and the end. I made sure that I knew the objective, the super objective, and the line of the play, so that I was always aware of what was going on and why I was doing that. And my line of the play was Claudia needs to find the truth, and she needs to tell the truth. And so that was a line I needed to make sure that my characters were always striving for that. They were always striving for the truth, and that was what what I decided. And then the last thing I did before I worked with the actors, so all of this up to here was work I did before I'd even talked to the actors. I did like a little character diagram here. So I did Claudia 1, or actually this was Claudia 2, and then Claudia 1, and then how they were both the same. So the two different parts of them. And so then we also were aware of like the similarities between the two, so that we could play on that to get the point across. And then once I did that, this is when I started to work with the actors, and this is when we started rough blocking. So I had already gone through, and on every unit, I have like a number listed here about like the blocking, and then I have the numbers out onto the script. So on number 1, they're gonna stand here. And so and then I started to work with the cast. I scheduled how many units we needed to block a day so that we were on time, and what I needed them to memorize by what day, so that they were aware like weeks in advance. And then every day I set, when I went to rehearsal, every day I set a daily goal, so where I wanted them to go, how I needed the characters to evolve. And the last thing is I made sure that I was open to changing the blocking, because what you write down is like very much in your head, and then once you actually start rehearsing with the actors, the characters evolve and change out of the characters that were originally in your head. So the blocking also changed. So a movement that was very natural for the character in your head is no longer natural for the actor who is playing the character. So you need to be able to evolve that. So I made sure I changed the blocking and continued to write in that blocking. And then the last thing I did right before performing is I did like a run-through write. So I let them run through the whole script without me stopping them. But while they were doing that, and that was beneficial for them and me, so they could see what it was like to run through the whole thing, and also for myself, so I could see like where I needed to change it as a whole, not in like little parts. And that's when I went through and I wrote all these notes. And so I kind of like just looked at it from like an outside point of view, and from an audience member, not as a director. And I wrote down parts that I really liked, and we needed to make sure I noticed that I liked them, so that the actors knew what parts were really working, and so that they continued to work on those, and what parts were just not working for me and how I can change that. So by writing that all out, it helped me remember from the beginning of the piece. So, and then the last thing we did was perform. And that is my directing book and my process.